Hi, this is Paul from Meter Coffee. I wanted to do a quick video on the X Pro and the X Ultra, the differences between these two grinders. I'm going to do a quick unboxing first just to kind of show you the actual, the physical differences. Then I want to talk a little bit about the burrs, the different burr types in these two grinders because they have changed a little bit. Also regarding the outer burrs, I've had quite a lot of questions about the outer burrs and the flavour profile that each of these burrs produce. And a lot of people are a little bit confused about that based on some blogs and some articles they've read online of people saying that the new sharper burrs are just not as good as the older original rounded burrs, and even going so far as to say that don't bother buying the X Ultra because of that. And I don't agree with that, so I'm going to try and address some of those things and give you a little bit of information so you can kind of make your own mind up on what you think. So hopefully this video will be really helpful for you, so stick around and I'll go into that right now. Okay, let's start with a quick unboxing of each grinder so you see what you get in the box. Obviously you're just getting the regular box with the card. You're getting the regular cleaning brush, and inside you're getting obviously your X Pro grinder. The one that I've got is the older one. This is the original X Pro. This is literally from the first batch that 1Zpresso released for this grinder. So mine's got obviously the normal static handle. I'm poor. I really can't afford the new update. So that's what you get. Oh, nearly forgot. Yeah, you're getting an anti-slip ring. It's kind of a different colour to the regular one you get for the other grinders where it's black. But yeah, you get that in there also. Right, let me just get rid of this box. Okay, let's just put that there. The X Ultra, obviously you get an outer carton here, a box. And inside you're getting the new travel case, which looks like this. And inside that's what the grinder looks like in there. This is a black one. There's 3 different colours for this grinder for the X Ultra. As you can see, there's the black, there's kind of a grey colour, and a sort of a blue colour one. So you can see what they look like here. For this, obviously I'm using the black one, but when you open this you get a little bit of a padding in there. You're getting obviously the blower and the anti-slip ring there. This little padding at the bottom here is to stop this moving around a little bit, because these new travel cases, they actually fit some of the bigger grinders in there, like the J Ultra and the K Ultra. They fit in there. The ZP6 also fits in here. It's a slightly bigger grinder than the X Ultra, and the X Pro fits in there also. They're the same size. The normal handle like that obviously won't fit in here. It needs to be the S series handle for that to fit in there. But if you're interested, you can buy these handles separately and they're not expensive. So if you've got an older version of the X Pro like me, you can actually buy a new handle that will fit on there, no problem, and they all fit the same. So you've got that. Okay, let's quickly take this out. Right, your travel case looks like this. It's moulded inside this, and you can see where everything goes in there, and it fits in really snugly. It's quite nice. You've got the Velcro at the top. That's going to keep your cleaning brush in there. But you can see the red finish around there is really nice. I really like that a lot. The old travel case didn't have anything like that, and it certainly didn't have the moulded finish in there. So when you put things in there, you had some kind of Velcro straps that held things in place. And again, you had the zip at the top here with the pocket, and the material was different to that. It wasn't as premium looking and as nice. So yeah, that's what your case looks like. The two grinders together. Look like that. The X Pro, when 1Zpresso brought that grinder out, it was obviously as a replacement for the JX Pro. At that time, they didn't say anything about discontinuing the JX Pro, but that's what they've done in the meantime since releasing the X Pro. And now 1Zpresso discontinued their, I mean, it was basically their best-selling grinder for a long time. A really nice kind of all-round grinder. I was really surprised when they discontinued that grinder, but there's some definitely big improvements, I think, in the X Pro between the JX Pro and this grinder. I'm going to make another video kind of showing what those differences are, so if you're interested in that, hopefully I'll have that finished and up posted soon, so maybe if you're interested in that you can kind of keep an eye out for that. The one thing that I think was a massive improvement on this grinder over the JX Pro was the speed of calibration. The JX Pro was kind of notorious for being confusing. The adjustment dial, the way that you adjusted that to calibrate it was really a little bit awkward, where you would have to try and get it to the 0 number, and if it didn't get to the 0 number, you would have to take the adjustment dial completely off and then adjust the thumb nut and then put it back on and then take it back to the 0, and if it wasn't there you'd have to take it off again and then turn the thumb nut a couple of clicks and then put it back on. So it was a little bit kind of time consuming. This one, it's just really super quick. If you're not aware of this, basically you just close your burrs all the way to this point, as you can see that mark there, and your 0 on here. So you close your burrs all the way until you want to get to this point. If your 0 stops over here, you just snap that off and then you turn your number to where it is in line with that and then just pop it back on. And that's it. Basically, it takes a few seconds, and for me personally, that was a massive improvement, and it just makes it super easy and super fast to calibrate your grinder. The X Ultra, again, is exactly the same. There's no difference there. It works exactly the same way. The weight for the X Pro is, you're talking about 510, 509, 510 grams. And the X Ultra is a little bit less. So that's 463 according to my scales, which are pretty accurate. So something's changed there for sure. Looking at them, there doesn't really seem to be any difference at all, but it's definitely, this is, I mean, without a doubt, it's not as heavy as the X Pro. Let's just see that again, just to make sure. Let's put it in the middle. Yeah, 509. And the X Ultra is 463. So, yeah, there's that. Okay, so I'll dismantle the grinders and I'll kind of show you what the differences is inside, and there is some differences in these two grinders. So yeah, I'll do that with the X Pro. To dismantle this grinder, it's important that if your grinder is calibrated and the burrs are fully closed, that you need to open your burrs all of the way, like so. Okay, you can take off, obviously take off your catch cup, like that, and put that down. Right, at this point, you're just going to pop off your adjustment dial. Now, the reason I say to actually open your burrs completely is because you won't be able to get your thumb nut off if they're not completely open. So at that point, push up and turn your thumb nut, then you can take it off. So at that point, you're just going to take out your burrs. Okay, and that's basically it. I'm going to take off the outer burrs because I want to show you these. There's been a lot of talk about these outer burrs recently, so these are something I really want to discuss, and that's basically your parts there. Okay, your burrs are the heptagonal 7-core 40mm heptagonal burrs. Usually you're going to find these burrs in something like a pour over grinder with maybe larger microns, usually, I don't know, 22 up to 33 microns, and they're usually good for pour over. One thing I want to point out right now is this grinder is, like I say, it's a 40mm 7-core heptagonal, but also it's 12.5 microns. So that means that the grind adjustment is going to be slightly finer than a regular pour over grinder, which, like I've just said, is going to be something like a, I don't know, 20 to 33 in some cases. Those grind adjustments, the fine adjustments, are going to be a lot bigger than this one. The reason this is that size is because it's also an espresso grinder. It's got a small but a really useful grind range for proper espresso, non-pressurized espresso. But that means that this grinder is going to also produce slightly more fines than a grinder with a bigger micron size that's, like I say, generally used for pour over. So just bear that in mind when you're using a grinder like this, that those things will actually alter your flavour profile. Very consistent, and they do give a really good flavour profile. A lot of people compare these to Comandante C40 because these are the burrs that they use in those grinders, and that's, I think personally, the main reason to buy that grinder, because it's got these burrs in there and you get that flavour profile. These burrs by rights should give you the same flavour profile, except that the micron size in these is about half. Well, it's less than half actually. The Comandante, the regular grinder, is 30 microns. These are 12.5, so it's less than half. So you're going to get, I would think, you know, more fines, and that can mean a little bit of a difference for pour over, where you've got those extra fines, and it's going to give you a slightly slower draw down for pour over, and that can obviously alter the flavour. Plus your particle distribution and your particle size and shape is going to be slightly different. So just bear that in mind with this grinder. Okay, the X Ultra, again the same thing. Take off your catch cup, open your burrs all of the way, pop off your adjustment dial and push up with your burrs and turn that to the corner. There, like that. There can be a little bit, actually these can be a little bit fiddly to get off, but it's very slight when you're turning it. So yeah, when that's off, it's off. Same with this. Slide out your burrs, like so. Okay. And outer burrs are going to go counterclockwise to open those. Some people don't know that, so they turn them clockwise, and it actually tightens them, and it can be a little bit difficult to get off. So yeah, your outer burrs are always anti-clockwise to take those off. So take those off. Right. Okay, at this point, you've got a little bit of a slight difference with the body of this grinder, or these two grinders rather. Your X Pro is like that, the X Ultra is like that. Now there's a different type of, I'm assuming these are just, it's part of the adjustment dial. I'm not sure what they're called. If anybody knows, I can kind of drop it down in the description at the bottom. But you can see these stabilizers and your bearings and everything are all the same. There's no difference there. I don't know if that's a different material or whether or not that's coated, but it just looks different. Maybe it's just a cosmetic thing, but there's that. Okay, the adjustment dial is exactly the same. There's no difference with those. It's the same size, got the same numbers, everything is exactly the same with that. Like I said earlier on, your thumb nut for these two is the same, apart from the Ultra's got the name on there. There's no difference. Okay, now there is a difference with the inner burrs. The X Pro has got this bearing cap, sorry, this burr cap on the bottom here. That there is now missing from the Ultra, and if I remember rightly, I think it's also missing from the more recent X Pro. I need to go and have a look at some of those, but yeah, there's no burr cap now, and I'm assuming that's where some of the weight difference is coming from. So let's just see what these are. Okay, so those burrs are 114, nearly 115 grams, and these burrs, yeah, 96.8, so nearly 97 grams. So there's quite a significant difference there, and that's going to be a lot to do with why this grinder is lighter than that grinder. Okay, right. At this point, I'm going to point out the obvious thing, and it's a thing that a lot of people have been talking about and asking about, and it's something that I wasn't really sure about for a while. These outer burrs, the shape on the edges are more round, and this shape definitely gives you a different flavour profile for certain beans, certain roast levels, and for certain brew types. The good burrs, and they work really well, and they give you a really nice flavour profile. However, 1Zpresso changed them when they released the X Ultra, and you can see now that they've got more of a sharp edge, like a shark's tooth. I mentioned this in my last video because people were asking me about this, and they were saying, have they updated the burrs in the X Pro? And I wasn't sure about it, because the grinders that I had, I got my last stock in about October, late October last year, so I had quite a lot of stock, and 1Zpresso didn't tell me about it, they didn't mention it, and I heard of a couple of people, but I wasn't sure. I asked 1Zpresso about it, and 1Zpresso are just really vague about things. They never update you, and when you ask them about things, they just try and avoid answering the question. So you end up with more questions than answers in the end. You ask them one question, you end up with like 5 questions. So they never ever really update you, or they don't really know, to be honest. I get the feeling that they just don't know. The people that I deal with, they just don't understand their own products. So I end up having to find out a lot of things myself, or sometimes off other people, you know, people who aren't dealers. And bear in mind, I am a dealer with 1Zpresso, and I've been dealing with them for years now. And I often don't know what they're doing, up until right to the point where they release something, they never tell you. And then when they do release something, they still just don't really tell you. So I end up having to really guess about a lot of stuff. But anyway, that said, these burrs, again, will give a different flavour profile. These edges here, the sharper edges, are generally better for something like lighter roast and medium roast, and they give you probably a better, more consistent grind. They slice the beans a little bit more than they actually crush the beans and break the beans, like with these burrs here. So they're going to be a little bit more uniform, and I would say that for something like a pour over or a French press, with a lighter roasted bean or a medium roasted bean, they're going to be actually better and give a better flavour profile than this type of thing, which is probably going to be more for something like below that, maybe, you know, espresso, mocha pot, that type of thing, even, you know, pour over also. But I would say that these are definitely going to give you arguably a better flavour profile. So there's that, and people are talking about this all the time, saying, have they changed the burrs? Are they better? It's really hard to say. Are these a better burr than these? It's up to you at the end of the day. If you think they are, then they are. I'll definitely say that 101% they're not worse. They're just slightly different, and they will produce a slightly different flavour profile for certain brew types and using certain beans at certain roast levels. The rest is up to you, how you kind of compensate for that. You can change your ratio slightly, you can, change your papers and all of those things. But those are things you're probably going to be doing anyway to get the best possible flavour from your coffee. And yeah, I mean, there's that. At the end of the day, it's kind of up to you. They're certainly not worse. It took me quite a while to get an answer back from 1Zpresso about whether or not they've actually started putting these burrs into the X Pro, because they have changed them. When I asked them why they changed it, they also give me some kind of roundabout answer about several different reasons, and they tried several different burr types and they found for this grinder that these burr types were the best, but they didn't tell me why. If you can find a dealer that has some stock that are from those earlier batches and you really want those rounded burrs because maybe you've heard somewhere that they're better, they've got a better flavour profile, then ask the dealer, is it the older stock or is it the newer stock, and just say that these ones are the more sharper ones that they released about October, November last year. Again, I'll point out that when they first released this grinder, they had some issues with the burrs. I asked them about that, they didn't want to answer, they just kind of said, there was an issue with the burrs from the manufacturing. They didn't say what they were, but from me ordering my first batch to them recalling it was very quick. I literally got it delivered the same day they asked me if they can come and pick them up again. So I sent them back right away. They had them for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks all in all before they said that they're going to send me out a new batch with the burrs fixed. They did that, then they recalled that. So again, I think they've caught it and there's been another issue or there's been some kind of mix-up with the delivery. I don't know, they didn't want to answer. So all in all, I had this grinder delivered from them, literally from them saying there was a new grinder, and me ordering it was maybe 1 week. Then me getting that was probably a week later, and then them recalling it was the same day that I got it delivered, so that's 2 weeks. And then them getting it and holding on to it and then getting me another batch out was maybe another week, so 3 weeks all in all. And then them recalling it to me getting another batch that was fixed. And this is the ones that I've got right now. And there's nothing wrong with them. I've tried them out and they're perfect. There's definitely nothing wrong with these grinders. And people are talking about that, saying, is it still, an issue with the burrs? I think they caught it and I don't know what it is, so I can't really update you on that or give you any more information because they simply don't want to say. Some people were saying online, making blogs and a couple of videos about it, saying about the burrs and saying that these burrs are worse, but they're not. They're just not. They're just different. They give it like a slightly different flavour profile, and that's it. It's not worse. I think to try and understand why people are talking about the difference in these burrs and the flavour profile, it's important to look at Comandante. When Comandante released their C40 grinder, 10 years ago, they kind of set the bar for manual grinders, especially for pour over. The type of burrs that they put into the C40 were the 7-core heptagonal burrs. Those burrs give a really good flavour profile for pour over, and I think after that, a lot of other companies, when they released their grinders, they also started to put those type of burrs into their pour over grinders. As an example, 1Zpresso put them into their K grinders, and the reason they do that is because they do produce a really good uniform particle for pour over, and they do produce a really good flavour profile. So I think what happens is that a lot of people who've got a Comandante compare other grinders and the flavour profiles to the Comandante. So technically those burrs are the same burrs. However, you've also got to look at two things here. Comandante make a very big deal about the actual alloys that they use for their burrs. It's a high nitrogen, high alloy set of burrs. They say that the actual surface of these burrs have got less imperfections, so they don't allow coffee oils to get in there, and again that can change the flavour profile. I'm not sure how significant that is, but I would say definitely those type of burrs are probably better suited for pour over than they are for something like espresso, for instance. So then the second important thing to understand is the micron size. And again, this is something that is overlooked time and time again. A lot of the time when you look at a grinder, the producers of these grinders, the company, they often neglect to include information for the micron size, because basically they want you to think that this grinder is suitable for everything. And they say it's an espresso grinder, however they neglect to tell you what kind of espresso. So you've really got to look at the micron size to understand that. So if it's a smaller micron size, something like the X Pro has got 12.5 microns. Those are under half the size of what you're getting with the C40. Now, a micron size like that can grind a lot finer, but a finer grind will produce more fines, and that will in turn alter the flavor profile. So I do think that a lot of the time when people are talking about the Comandante's got this flavor profile, but they've tried something like the X Pro, and the X Pro's got a different flavor profile. It's not the same. Again, they're not the same grinders. Right away I'll say that. Why do you expect them to have the same flavor profile? And certainly not with those micron sizes. So you really need to look at that, and that's important really for the overall flavor profiles between these two grinders. So I do feel that when you get something like the outer burrs, which again are different for both grinders, the rounder burrs are going to produce a different flavor profile for different brew types, and the sharper, like the shark tooth sharp burrs, are going to also produce a different flavor profile at different brew types. Neither one are better and neither one are worse. They're just different. Now, if you understand the brew types that you want to use them for to produce a better flavour profile for those brew types, then you'll probably understand better which one to go for. So after I've tested both of these grinders side by side, the X Pro and the X Ultra, and I've found that, again, neither of them are better or worse than the other, but they do perform slightly different at different brew types. So I've kind of made this list of what brew types each burr type are technically better for, and I've also included something like to say what I found, what brew types I use them for, and what I found for my palate and my preference, what I preferred for each of these brew types. I've also included a little bit of information just to talk about things like different types of beans and different processes, because again, something like a natural process will taste better with a slightly more fine grind size. And again, these type of burrs, for whatever grind size you dial them into for things like espresso, will also then change the flavor profile quite a lot for things like, you know, natural process, lighter roasts. So I've included a little bit of that information also. And again, if you're interested in that, then please just pause the video and have a look through this list. I think at this point it's really important to include some actual technical information regarding the two different types of burrs, the rounded edge and the sharp edge burrs. Regardless of what people say, and when they're mentioning the flavour profiles that they prefer, you have to really look at the technical side of what these two different types of burrs do. And I also think this is important to understanding why people say that they prefer the Comandante C40 over something like, you know, the X Pro or the X Ultra, or even some other grinders with these types of burrs, because they will produce different flavour profiles. And I do think that's also at the heart of why people are saying that these things are different and the flavours are different from these different types of burrs. So I just want to include this, so please pause the video and have a look at this. This is technical information. French press typically uses a very coarse ground size, and I found that the rounded edges of the conical burrs that you get with the X Pro seem to produce a grind that was less aggressive than the sharp burrs that you get with the X Ultra. This helped to maintain the distinct and full body flavours associated with French press coffee, as the coffee grounds were not overly processed. Cold brew coffee is often made with a very coarse grind. I found that the rounded edges of the X Pro burrs contributed to a grind profile that was a little gentler on the coffee beans and potentially enhanced the extraction process for cold brew without imparting unwanted bitterness. Percolators also generally benefit from a coarser grind, so like cold brew, the X Pro conical burrs with the rounded edges seem to be more suitable for achieving the desired grind size without over processing the coffee, resulting in a well extracted and flavourful percolated coffee. Turkish coffee traditionally requires an extremely fine grind. I found that I prefer the X Pro rounded burrs for this method because they produced a slightly more consistent and uniform grind size for Turkish coffee, where a very fine grind is required for optimal flavour extraction. For espresso, the consistent grind provided by the sharp-edged conical burrs with the Ultra work best for espresso extraction, I found. Espresso requires a fine and uniform grind to ensure proper extraction within a short brewing time. The sharp edges help achieve this position, allowing for a flavourful and well-balanced shot, and work better than the rounded burrs, especially with light roaster beans for espresso. Pour over V60 Chemex. Pour over methods benefit from a consistent grind size to control the extraction time and ensure an even saturation of the coffee grounds. The sharp edges of the conical burrs with the Ultra contributed to a uniform grind, allowing for better control over the brewing process and a more balanced and flavourful profile. Again, the sharp edged burrs work best for light roasted beans, highlighting the subtle flavours, and the rounded edge burrs work best for medium roast beans in my opinion. But ultimately both grinders worked very well for pour over, but each worked best for slightly different roast levels and for different bean types and processes. AeroPress. Similar to Espresso, AeroPress brewing benefits from a fine and consistent grind. Both the rounded edged and the sharp edged burrs produced a consistent grind suitable for AeroPress brewing. However, the consistency provided by the rounded edged burrs offered a slight advantage over the ultra sharp burrs in terms of flavour extraction, I found, and overall brew quality. For drip coffee makers, or an automatic drip coffee maker, consistent grind is also essential to ensure even extraction. Both the grinders, again with the different burrs, produced a consistent grind suitable for a well extracted and flavourful cup of drip coffee. So, which grinder did I prefer out of the two? After several tests, I kind of found that I was going more towards the X Ultra, and the reason is that in my drinking habits I tend to go for things like espresso, drip coffee, maybe AeroPress occasionally, and pour over, and I just found that the X Ultra had a slight edge over the flavour profile for the type of beans that I was using and for those brewing types over the X Pro. The X Pro being, really nice also, but I just found that those sharper burrs tended to bring out the flavours more for medium to medium dark roasted beans, and also for the lighter roasted beans for pour over. They tended to bring out quite a bit more flavour actually in natural processed beans that were lighter roasted, and even for medium roast I found natural processed beans, they just brought out a nice kind of acidity and a clearer flavour for those sharper burrs from the X Ultra over the X Pro. The X Pro, on the other hand, I found that it was kind of slightly better for me for something like Turkish, which was really surprising because that's a really fine grind. Things like percolator coffee, French press, right at the other end of the grind range, and cold brew. I found that it just again brought out slightly more flavours for those type of brew types. It was a little bit strange when I tested them because those four things are really, well, obviously Turkish and percolator is kind of on the opposite side of French press and cold brew. But again, this is just a personal preference, and a lot of different variables there and different things are going to probably bring out different flavours for all of these brew types for both of these grinders. But that's kind of my personal findings for these two grinders. If you feel differently after using it, and please let me know what you feel. Again, I'm just saying these are personal opinions. I'm not an expert. I'm just saying, after using this for a little while, this is what I've personally feel. So, like I say, I'll be happy to hear from other people who've used the grinder or used them side by side, and maybe, you know, tell other people what they feel in the comments down below. If this video is useful to anybody and you feel like you want to comment or share any kind of insights, always happy to hear it, and I'll answer every question. So, once again, thanks for watching, and if you like this content, please consider subscribing or giving me a thumbs up. Have a nice day and take care.